everybody, and welcome back to episode 18 of Wilbur Talks FPL, where we talk everything FPL and, of course, the Premier League in general. Been a while. You can blame me for that. You can blame international breaks for that. But we're back. And just coming out of the 2-week international break, or getting towards it, and we're going to be podding ahead of game week 31. So we're on the run to the end of the season now. Should be fun. I know certainly myself got a lot of chips to play, so we're going to make it a bit fun the last few weeks. But we'll see how we're all getting along. Hope everyone is well. And I'll welcome back Charlie and Sam as usual with the regulars. How are you both doing? Not crying too much over the international break?
Not at all. Ready for Premier League football to come back, to be honest.
Yeah, I hate the international break with a passion, so bring it back. Bring back the Premier League.
Definitely. I think we're just being international football is not up to it unless it's a World Cup or Euros, really, is it? Especially when it's just friendlies and it's not much point to it, really. Did I go to the Man United women's game at the weekend? Though it wasn't too bad. So supporting some others while the normal football isn't on. But yeah, I think that gives us a good overview of what we've been getting international break. We haven't to ask you. But as we've not been here in a few weeks, I think we need to catch up on a bit of FPL progress. We'll start with the Starman, as we like to do. Me and Sam will just hide for a minute. So Charlie, how was your season going up to this point? I know you were looking well when we spoke last.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we may as well have just not... we could just play back the recording from the last time you asked me, because I've pretty much just gone nowhere for 4 weeks. Just kind of up and down between 10 and 20k overall. Been posting some fairly high scores, I would say, fairly good, above the average most weeks, but still, yeah, I think around about where I am, I think it is pretty much all very engaged managers and people that are, with all the knowledge that's out there, I think it is getting harder and harder at the top end. So yeah, just kind of holding my own at that point, just trying to see what I can do to just have that little last boost at the end of the season, just to break the top 10k again.
I definitely agree with what you're saying. It's a lot harder up at the top, isn't it? Unless you've got some chip to give you a big boost, it's always going to be quite tight, or you've got to go a bit differential. So I feel for you down there. Down there, I shouldn't say up there. We wish it was down where we are. How have you been doing recently, Sam? I know you've had a bit of a rivalry going on the last week or so in one of your family leagues, as you were just saying before.
Yeah, I need to retain top spot in the family Premier League. And at the moment, I've lost first place in that league for the first time in 4 seasons, so I need to recover that immediately. Wilbur Games Premier League, I think we're 5th at the minute. Lots of red arrows, unfortunately, over the last couple of weeks, so I need to sort that out. Yeah, it's just been a bit of a tough spell for me with FPL, really. I played a blunder with the wild card in the wrong week, and just trying to recover from it now. But no, we're not doing too bad. We're not doing too bad. Got a couple of tricks up the sleeve, ready to go for this week.
Sounds good. We were just talking about your trick of game week 30, weren't you? Where you basically just writ off game week 30, just get you through it with Saka pulling you through as the captain.
Literally, yeah. I knew I had about maximum of 5 players that could play. One of them didn't play, and so I literally posted 4 scoring, and one of them scored -2. So when you put that into an equation, it doesn't usually bank for many points, but thankfully Saka 22 points sorted me right out. So GG's to him.
Were you on? Oh no, I was going to say Charlie. I was thinking he was on free hit, but it was just you set it up well for the wild card, didn't you, in game week 30? So you was pretty strong for game week 30.
Yeah, exactly. That was always the plan. The way the fixtures panned out was right for a wild card a little bit before those double game weeks in 26 and 28 and 29. And yeah, and then worked well going into last week. So yeah, well set up. Still got 1 free hit in the back pocket. And not exactly certain when I'll play it. I think I'll just see how things go.
Have you got any chips left, Sam?
I do have bench boost left, which I'll probably full send in the last the last double game week. I think if I need to, I'll evaluate my position against my cousin Matthew up to that point, and if I need to pull some Hail Marys out the bag, I've got the bench boost for the game week 37. That's the strategy at the minute.
Yeah, I've got a nice collection of chips still to use. I've got still wildcard, I've got bench boost, and another free hit as well. So the current plan is to play like 3 in the last 5 weeks. So it's going to be just hit and hope at the end of the season and try and climb the ranks a bit. Recently, not been doing particularly well. I think in the game week 30, I kind of had a lot of players, but it's not the right players, and I dropped. I think I was about 220, and I dropped to 266. So not ideal. Probably similar to Sam in that sense. So there's not been a lot of green arrows recently. We've just kind of been floating around that mid 200 mark, but hopefully make a big dent into the rankings the last few weeks. We'll touch on the double game weeks a bit in the second half of the pod, but I wanted to get a bit of a Premier League catch up. I'm going to ask the questions a bit of the other way around. So I'm going to go to Sam and ask you what you think of the current top 4 race. Are you thinking that Arsenal are pretty set on that now, or you think that Spurs or United could possibly get back, or someone outside of that?
Well, I think the last time I was asked this question, I think I actually went for Spurs to get 4th. I think I said something along the lines of, it wasn't long ago Arsenal were fighting for relegation and etc. etc. So that's kind of turned a little bit. Obviously, Arsenal have been playing really, really well, and credit where it's due. It's a completely different Arsenal team now to the one that we saw at the start of the season. So, yeah, no, fair play to Arsenal. They have sorted it out. I think they have a game in hand over Spurs and Man United. I think they've got one game in hand left, and I think they're 3 points clear. So if they do win that, to go 6 points clear with, I think then it would be 9 to play. That would be a big gap. I don't know what it is. I still think it's going to be close. Arsenal have not really been in much of like an acid test situation over the last few years, probably because they just haven't quite had the quality all pulled together at the right time. But if they get to sort of within 3 or 4 games to go and the gap's only 3 points, it'll be a big test of Arsenal's mentality. So we'll see what happens there. I think they've got a decent run in though, Arsenal, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they're probably favourites at the moment. I think Spurs will be there or thereabouts. I think it's massive for Spurs. They've got Kane and Son back in form, it would appear at the minute. Unfortunately, I can't see Man United boys getting in. I just think they're gonna drop too many points between now and the end of the season. And if Arsenal were to win their game in hand, I think they'd go like more than 2 wins clear of you. So I think you're going to really struggle to get in that top 4. But you're only a point behind Spurs, I think. So it could be a close one. If I was going to put money on someone now, I think it'd be silly to now wager against Arsenal. But I've still got a sneaky suspicion that Spurs will be there or thereabouts. So it'll be between those two, I think, for top 4. As the top 2 in whichever position they end up won't change. Chelsea will be 3rd. Yeah, it's up for grabs for 4th still, I think.
Wait for Charlie to interject and say that the game in hand's away at Chelsea, so we might not count that as much of a game in hand. But like I said, I think they've got a decent run, but I know they have still got to play United, Spurs, and Chelsea. And I don't know, you've already played Liverpool, haven't you? So I think you've got those really 3 kind of. In my head, they're fixtures that the other teams really need to win, like a Spurs or a United have to win those games. Like you could easily, like Arsenal could play for a draw in those games.
I think whoever wins that Arsenal Spurs game gets 4th. I think that's the deal breaker.
Yeah, because I don't think that is. I think that's the game that's not being scheduled yet. Still needs a confirmed date, and it is at Spurs as well. So definitely.
If that was at Arsenal, I would definitely back Arsenal. The fact it's at Spurs doesn't really change too much. Probably a bit more of a 50-50 game, but yeah, I think whoever wins that North London derby will get 4th.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Are you pretty confident in the position you're in now, Charlie, to hold off any fights from behind?
I think I'd agree with everything Sam just said, really. I don't see United getting back into the race because of the fixtures primarily, and just if you look at the situations at those three clubs, you'd say Arsenal's probably the most settled, then Spurs, and then United certainly the lowest. So, yeah, I'd certainly write United off at this point. In terms of clearly Arsenal are in a better position at the moment with the game in hand and points advantage. And like Sam said, that game Arsenal Spurs is going to be key, obviously. But also, you would say Spurs' run from now to the end of the season is the best, because Arsenal still, like you said, will have to play Chelsea, United, and Spurs, whereas Spurs have Arsenal and Liverpool in terms of the big teams that they're playing. So, it is going to be tight, I reckon. But also, what I quite enjoy now looking at these fixtures is where in previous seasons I'd maybe be looking at some of these games that are on paper easier. In previous years, I wouldn't be, feeling like we would be getting wins out of those games for sure, because of a lack of consistency and a lack of confidence in the team. Whereas now I feel like we can go into these games very positive, and even if it's going to be a tough game, feel like we have the mentality to pull through it. So I really do feel like it will come down to that tight game between Spurs and Arsenal, and I feel like we've at least got enough to get a draw in that game, which should be enough to see them off. So yeah, I would say I'm still quietly confident that Arsenal have got enough to keep it, but yeah, certainly think it will go down to the wire between Arsenal and Spurs.
Yeah, I think really it's that Spurs game, and then you've kind of got 3 games in the space of a week where you play. I know. Well, it's when you've got Southampton on the Saturday, you've got Chelsea on the Wednesday, and then United on the next Saturday. So if you get through, even if you got through like that week pretty unscathed, or got through the Spurs game with a win, I think you'd be pretty fine. It kind of has to go pretty bad for you at this point to mess it up. And like you say, I don't have much faith in United even winning every game to keep up with you, let alone being able to get above you. So we shall see on that one. But if we stay with you, Charlie, and we talk about Sam's team, what are you thinking in terms of the title race? I know I'm very close at the minute, and the big game to come up, I think, in about 2 weeks' time, or a week and a half, which could be the title showdown.
Yeah, exactly. It's a similar situation, really. You've got 2 teams fighting out for it with a game against each other to play. You'd suggest that Liverpool's run is more difficult for the rest of the season, and also the game being at City as well between the two of them. I think you have to favour them, and they've got the 1 point advantage, which isn't really much, but it's something. So I really don't know how to call it. I think it will come down to a multitude of things. I think it will come down to that one game between them. It will come down to who goes further in the Champions League. You'd expect probably both to get through and go far. So it's going to be really tough to call. I similarly to the Arsenal Spurs debate, I think it will go right down to the end, which is only good. We've had quite a few examples recently of a team winning it fairly early on and being quite boring. So it's nice that there's throughout the top 4 and in the relegation zones as well. There's plenty of storylines happening and things still to play for towards the end of the season, which helps FPL as well in terms of teams still going for it.
Yeah, it should definitely hopefully help with a bench boost 36 that people have still actually got something to play for. That's the theory there, at least. How are you feeling about it, Sam? Getting nervous yet? It's getting to that crunch time, isn't it, of the season where a lot to play for?
There is a lot to play for. I think no one really would have seen Liverpool being in this situation after the 2-2 draw with Chelsea when we were 11 points behind Man City and they had a game in hand. So to be within a point now really pays testament to what's been an incredible run. They said that, and even I was doubtful that when Mane and Salah went to the AFCON, that we'd be able to maintain the form we have. The signing of Luis Diaz was an inspirational signing. Yeah, I mean, we're certainly in the title race. I would agree with what Charlie said, that Man City have almost certainly got the easier running of the two when you look at it on paper. But having said that, it's one of those where you might not want to play a lot of teams fighting for their lives down at the bottom of the table. So it's a bit of a tricky one to call. Obviously, there's an unavoidable showdown happening at the Etihad. in a couple of games' time that ultimately, if Man City do win that, I think it will be very hard to see Man City not winning the league. At the start of the season, I think I said that I would fancy Liverpool to go far in Europe this year, and my stance on that hasn't changed. I still think Liverpool are going to win the Champions League this year. Got a fantastic draw in the quarterfinals, and then I think the likelihood is we'll go forward to play Bayern in the semi-finals, who we beat in the quarters a couple of years ago. So we've got a great chance to get into the Champions League final, and we'll see what happens with the league. You can only beat what's in front of you 1 week at a time. I think we got a good chance. I do think we got a good chance. If Man City are away at Burnley next, I think that's a big. Although on paper it looks like it should be a pretty easy win for Man City, I think if Man City struggle against Burnley and even they can only sort of like sneak a 1-0 or whatever, Liverpool have got a great chance going to the Etihad. If Man City go out, roll over Burnley 4-5 or more to nil or whatever, they'll have the confidence up ready for Liverpool. But it's very open. It is very, very open. Like Charlie said, it's good to see a title race. That's actually a race, and whichever one of them goes on to win it will certainly deserve it. So good luck to both involved, really.
I think it's huge that game they play against each other. Obviously, if either team wins that, they're just the new favourites. I think. Well, obviously, if Liverpool win that, I'd class them as favourites because I think we know both teams can go on one of those runs where they can just literally win every game. So it wouldn't surprise me if Liverpool went and won every single game the rest of the season and won the league. But again, it depends on other competitions as well. Like you said, you've got a favourable draw. You could get Benfica done in one leg and then just try to forget about the other one. So
I don't think Benfica will be done in one leg, but I do think they'll get through.
Yeah,
and yeah, like I said, if City win that game at the Etihad, I think it's going to be very difficult to get a 4-point overhaul. Plus, they'll more than likely eat into the Liverpool's goal difference advantage, which can't be ignored at this stage. If, for example, that game at the Etihad is a draw, and I actually think it's more than likely to be a draw than anything, that goal difference could prove really, really important at the end of the season. So Liverpool are ahead in that at the minute. But if Man City were to win at the Etihad and start eating into that goal difference again, it's just another thing going against them. So I think City should probably still be just favourites for now. But like we've seen in the past, right off Liverpool at your peril.
yeah. I was looking at that goal difference, especially in the top four for the goal difference, because the goal difference between like Spurs and Arsenal is like two different. So you imagine if it comes down to the last day and North London rivals are separated by goal difference. Could be crazy at the end of the season. I've seen that your two African players in Mane and Salah have gone to extra time again, playing against each other. Sam, it's just,
I know, yeah.
They can never be separated, those two sides. What's going on at the minute? It looks like it's going to go to another penalty shootout.
I know, yeah.
Scenes again. But I have to see in the Portugal game that United are carrying Portugal, as usual, that Bruno could be putting them in the World Cup. So if we just go to the final bit, I want to talk about the Premier League relegation, just to complete the full circle. So Charlie, bottom three that are there now, are they staying there, or you fancy Everton maybe to go down? I'd argue the other teams might be a bit far out of it now, especially Leeds with the last two games, getting those two wins big for them. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I said something similar last time we talked about it. Is that it's always easy just to say the three that are in the bottom now will probably go down. I think Norwich have long been confirmed as basically down. Obviously not mathematically, but almost certainly from the position they just can't buy a win or even a point. And Watford, I think, despite the win recently, it's still not just quite enough. They're 3 points off Everton, having played two games more. Their only saving grace is the fact that Everton have been so poor. So I think, and I don't really see Burnley being able to do enough to get out of the relegation zone. I think they may, of between them and Watford, do the better out of the two, and I think Burnley should certainly finish above Watford. But it's just about whether Burnley can do enough to get above and take advantage of Everton if Everton continues to do poorly. So it's really difficult to say. I think if I was going to actually back a manager between Sean Dyche and Frank Lampard to keep a team up, I guess you would have to say Sean Dyche based on experience and past efforts, but it's going to be really tough. I think it would be tight between those two. I certainly think Watford and Norwich down, and then it's going to be very tight between Burnley and Everton. I don't know. I'd probably just give it to Everton because of the quality of players to stay up, but who knows really. It's a complete gamble, I think.
It would be a similar situation because next Wednesday, Burnley against Everton. So that's like 9 points of that. We call them 6 pointers, but could be a huge swing there. If Burnley get that, then all Everton fans are going to be quaking in the boots, aren't they, at that point? So it's going to be an interesting one. Would you agree with that, Sam? Any other input to that one?
Yeah, I think the bottom three, as they are most likely to go down. Like Charlie said, I think Watford actually had an opportunity to get themselves back into the fight for staying up. They're actually a little bit unfortunate that Brentford and Leeds have got 2 wins in their last 5 games, because if they were still sort of in and around and getting sucked into it a little bit, I think there's a bit more leaf amongst Watford that they could get out of it. Having said that, Burnley only a point behind them with 2 games in hand. If Burnley could win one of their games in hand, and I know they've got a massive game against Everton, if Burnley can beat Everton and really put some pressure on Everton, there's a chance that Burnley or Watford could get out of it. Everton have just been an absolute mess this season, which has been amazing to watch. But at the end of the day, Everton have got to start winning games, and if the others want to stay up, they've got to start winning games to avoid try and avoid repeating the obvious. But if it just feels like, I feel like Everton will probably find something somewhere to get a win when the pressure's on and it really matters. And I don't know if the others have got that in them. So I think it's most likely outcome that the ones that are in there at the moment end up going down. But obviously, there is still a few games to play.
Crunch time again, isn't it? Most games are going to be 6 points for those teams, so definitely interesting battles all over the table, which is good to see, making it competitive and, like we said, especially for FPL, keeping most teams interested as we get into the last few games, which with all these chips to play, we've got to make it work somehow. But as kind of a midway section, as we like to do, I thought I'd still do a little quiz, even though we're trying to keep the pods a bit shorter going forward. So there's a bit of a theme running through this quiz. So you've got 3 rounds. They get harder each round in hope that I can separate you both, because I know what you like for being separated. So there's going to be a theme of goal scorers. So the first round, there's 10 players this season that have scored 10 or more Premier League goals. So you're going to take it in turns to name those 10. If you name all 10, then it's a draw and we'll move on to the next round. But I think there's a few, especially on 10 goals, that might trip you up slightly. So who shall I go first? Any choosers to go first?
Don't mind.
So
Flip a coin, Will.
So if you get it wrong, you automatically lose. So heads for Sam. Right, so heads. So Sam, you're first. So any Premier League player to have scored at least 10 Premier League goals so far this season.
Okay. Just a few names being scribbled. Okay, let's start with the top goal scorer, Mr. Mo Salah.
I don't even have to say that's correct, do I really? So yes, top of the pile.
Let's go with his Liverpool teammate, Diogo Jota.
That is correct. He's actually second on the list as well. Well, joint second.
He's second now.
He's joint second, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go for Cristiano Ronaldo.
That is correct. There's a lot of joints in this table, so I will tell you that he has got 12 goals.
I'm going to stick with my Liverpool theme and go Sadio Mane and complete the front line.
That is correct. Making up a lot of the players at the top with his 12 goals as well.
Ivan Toney.
I thought you might get tricked up by that one, but Tony is correct with 11 goals.
Wow. Yeah. I suppose, yeah, double digits, low double digits is achievable for those kind of clubs.
Yeah, it's not a bad return, to be fair, for him.
Yeah. Let's go with Harry Kane.
That is correct. On 12 as well. Everyone's saying Ronaldo's been a flop and he's got the same goals as Kane, so yeah.
Kane's been a flop as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
Sonny.
That is correct. He is joint second with Jota with more goals than Harry Kane.
Really?
Yeah. He scored a lot early on in the season. I think the first 8 or 9 weeks he just carried Spurs with a goal in most games. So you have named 7 so far, so 3 left, and it's over with Charlie. And I'll give you all both a sneak peek that the last 3 have all got 10 goals.
Oof, so we've got the 3 that have just edged it.
Yeah.
I would expect, because of that little run he went on, that Sterling has reached 10. So that's my answer, Sterling.
Sterling has got 10. That is correct.
Well, that's good, because I think I've only got one more.
You might just need
I've
one.
got one more answer to give. Let's go for Jamie Vardy.
Vardy has also got 10 goals. That is correct.
Go on.
So we're over to Charlie for the last 10 goal scorer.
This will be tough. I don't think there's any obvious standouts that I can think of. I'm pretty certain none of the Arsenal boys have. I don't think they've reached double digits yet.
Oh yeah, there's 7 players on 9 goals.
I would expect, this isn't my answer, but I'm just talking out loud, Rafinha must be up there, but I don't think he's quite got enough to have pushed him. Antonio maybe similar. Would he have? He obviously had a little bit of a run, but was it consistent enough? And he's been he's lacked a lot of goals lately. Trying to think of other strikers. Dennis maybe. Yeah, it's a bit of a pot shot, so I'm gonna guess with Dennis and see what happens.
I thought you was just going down naming everyone who had 9 goals there when you was going down that little list.
Really?
I would have guessed Antonio, I think.
Antonio had 8 goals.
He only got 8.
He's been really bad at playing.
Yeah, Rafinha had 9 goals.
Yeah.
Smith Rowe had 9 goals. Zaha had 9 goals.
Zaha's got 9.
Yeah, Saka's got 9 goals. Bruno Fernandes has got 9 goals. KDB has got 9 goals. And Dennis has also got 9 goals.
Oh.
So
Really? Who's the other one?
number 10 with the goals is Riyad Mahrez.
Wow.
Such an awkward player.
He did
just not someone
Never would have got Mahrez.
Yeah.
You just when he's on the pitch, he scores, doesn't he? So, and he's been getting a bit more game time. Yeah, that was a bit of an awkward one. That there's a few other decent players around, like 8, like Bowen, Maddison, Gallagher, even more pie on here, even Timo Pukki. There's quite a few on 8. But yeah, so that is point to Sam on that one. So that is talking about Premier League goal scorers. We've had a top 10 of that. So now you're going to do exactly the same, but all-time Premier League goal scorers. So we're going to let Charlie go first this time. So in Premier League history, so going back to 1992-1993 season, you want to do the same for me? I will give you a bit of a guide here. So the lowest one in this list has got 150 goals.
Well, let's knock out the obvious, Alan Shearer.
That is correct.
I'm I'm going to start with an obscure one here, only
Ooh.
because I was listening to an interview about how this fella retired recently, and they were making a big thing about how he's in the top 10 all-time Premier League goal scorers. So I'm going to go for Jermaine Defoe.
That is correct. He is number 9 in the list.
Let's make some Arsenal representation. Thierry Henry.
Gotta make it somewhere, haven't we? Yep, he is 7th.
Wayne Rooney.
Number 2.
Harry Kane, obviously going for Shearer's record.
Yep, currently the only active player in the top 10.
Well, I've got 2 other dark horses here, so I'm not going to waste them yet. I feel like I might need them. Sergio Aguero.
That is correct. He's the next one in the hit list for Harry Kane. He's in 4th.
I'm pretty sure, because when you said 150, that rang a bell, that Michael Owen is that player.
Michael Owen is that player on 150.
Yeah. Thought that remember that somewhere. Bang on.
We've got three players left, and it's Sam's turn.
Okay, I think I have 2. So
that's all you need.
Screwed. If I get one and Charlie gets one, I'm in the budget. Okay, Lampard.
That is correct. He was overtaken by Kane the other day. He's in 6th.
Interesting. I've got one definite and then one possible.
So I'll give you both. So the 2 positions you've got left to fill is 3rd and 8th.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm pretty sure my definite is going to be 3rd. Then is Andy Cole.
He is 3rd. That is correct.
Well, that's good because I would not have got Andy Cole, but I am going to get Robbie Fowler.
He is number 8. Correct.
Fair enough.
Shimon, the Liverpool boy he's representing.
My that wasn't actually. I forgot about Fowler. My possible was going to be Les Ferdinand. I guess he must be near.
I wouldn't have got Andy Cole. I don't know.
I was going to say on this list, and I only got the top 10. I haven't got you near shooters on this one.
Pretty sure Ferdinand's just outside, somewhere near.
Yeah, I feel like he's he's got to be like 130, 140 kind of range, isn't he?
I wouldn't have even known who to guess at 3rd. If you'd have said, if I'd have been stuck with who was 3rd, no, I don't know. I wouldn't have got Andy Cole, I don't think.
Right, so round 3 is the killer round because it's designed to make sure you do not get them all right. Because I knew we'd get into a situation like this where you're going to be tight. So I've got a list of 12 players here, and the 12 players are the highest goal scorers from direct free kicks in Premier League history. So directly from a free kick, you can kind of just I don't really need to describe it more than that. So a direct free kick goal in Premier League history. So using the same time frame here, I'll tell you that the lowest player on this list has only scored 9 direct free kicks. So I have to make it slightly difficult because if you get everyone on this list, then you guys can just present the pod from now on because it's just obscene some of the names on here. So if we use the logic, we'll go back to Sam. So if you get one wrong, either of you will lose. But if we get to a point, I might try and test you on some of the lower ones down.
Okay.
So over to you, Sam.
Right. I'm going to go with my main man who I thought had the most assists in the league in an epic podcast moment. James Ward-Prowse must be on the list.
Of course, he's on the list. He's joint second with 12 direct free kicks.
12, good effort.
I am going to keep with my theme of knocking out the most obvious ones and say Mr. David Beckham.
Beckham is number 1 with 18. Quite clear in first place. Something for Ward-Prowse to chase down.
Well, Ronaldo must be on there.
He is on there. He's in joint third with 11.
Well, one that's that I'm certain of will be Thierry Henry.
He's joint second with 12.
Okay. Now we're getting spicy.
Definitely. This is getting like the brain churning, trying to visualise people taking free kicks in previous years of the Premier League.
I'm gonna go. I haven't got. I definitely haven't got 5 here. So these next two are a bit of a shot in the dark and rolling back the years a little bit. Let's go for Ian Hart.
That is correct.
Yes.
He's in joint
What
4
a player.
with
What
10.
a player.
I remember a few of his, to be fair.
Yeah, I've got a number of guesses, but no certains at this point. I'm pretty sure Frank Lampard took the majority of Chelsea's when he was there, so I'm going to say Frank Lampard.
Lampard is at the very bottom of the list with 9, just scraping in there.
Sneaking in there.
There are 3 players on 9, by the way, so he's at the bottom, but he's joined by 2 others, so he is correct. So you've
really got one more sort of fancy answer.
You're halfway through, you've got 6 out of 12.
For God's sake. Right. I think this is right. So I don't know whether I should use it and punt, but I feel like if I don't use it, I'm probably out. So I need to use it. Sebastian Larsson.
That is correct. He's got the same as Ronaldo on 11.
Yeah. I'm in trouble now.
At least it's not your guess yet.
Yeah, so at this point it's just the process of elimination of which of my guesses is most likely. I think I will go. He had a bit of a name for himself for free kicks, but the problem is he had a horrible injury record, so it's whether or not he had enough. But I think it's my most obvious guess that I've got left, so I'm going to say Jamie Redknapp.
Oh, that's a spicy one, because he's with Frank Lampard at the bottom of the list.
How the hell is Jamie Redknapp on that list?
He had a thing for free kicks. It's just the injury record wasn't.
Cardboard footballer.
Nailed him.
Cardboard footballer.
Right, so we're left with 4 players to guess. One of them's got 12, one of them's got 11, one of them's got 10, and one of them's got 9.
12, 11, 10, and 9. Oh, dear God. Right, who's in the Premier League left now? Oh, this is going to be... he said Henry, didn't he? So I can't think of any other Arsenal. Notorious Arsenal free kick takers. Burnley, no. Villa, unlikely. Someone like Hitzelsberger. Everton. Luca Digne might not be a bad shout, but he probably hasn't scored many. Fulham, I don't know when they were in the league. No. Jamie Redknapp, how is he on the list? How is Jamie Redknapp on the list? I wonder who took Man City's free kicks when they were good. Well, they still are.
For God's sake, that's only recently, isn't it?
I mean, De Bruyne probably scored a couple. But...
In fairness, if Charlie's managed to get Redknapp and Lampard, if he gets the man in between them on the same amount of goals, then he can be the host.
I'll tell you what. Oh, I don't know. No.
One of these players on this list, half of his goals must have been free kicks. I can't imagine he scored that many that many goals in general. Like, I remember his name back in
I honestly don't know. Let's go for. I don't think this is right, but I know he used to take quite a few. He scored a few free kicks. Christian Eriksen.
No, that is incorrect.
Yeah, fair enough.
Do you fancy having another guess or two, Charlie?
Well, the only other name I had, which wasn't, this is going to be maybe one of the most millennial things I've ever said, but because I remembered them talking about him taking free kicks on Soccer AM, and not from him actually playing, was Zola. I'm sure he was a good free kick taker. Whether he's in the top 10, I have no idea, but.
Yeah, he is in the top 10. I was very surprised that neither of you said him because he was the one on 12, so he was in joint second.
Yeah.
I couldn't get the mind blank out of Lampard taking free kicks for Chelsea. There is one that has literally like arrived on my doorstep since we've screwed this up.
Go for it.
It's out there, so it might be really wrong. Nobby Solano?
That's the one I said I didn't think either of you were going to get between Redknapp and Lampard.
Yeah. I wouldn't have. That didn't even come to me. And I was thinking about clubs that are still in the league. Obviously, Newcastle.
So there's two other players you haven't got. Any other guesses, Charlie, or do you want me to give you these two?
What clubs do they play for?
So I'm pretty sure this. I know one of them played for Blackburn when he got most of his free kicks.
Oh no! Oh, what a left foot he had as well.
Yeah.
Oh mate, it's Morton Gouts Pedersen.
Yeah, that is correct. And the other one, I'm pretty sure Newcastle from back in the day.
Newcastle.
I'm pretty sure it's Newcastle. Watch me, I've got that totally wrong.
Don't know. Pass.
Lauren Robert, the left winger.
Laurent Robert, that is Newcastle.
Yeah, I was like,
I would never have got Laurent Robert.
I had like flashbacks of him in a Newcastle shirt, and I'm like, I need to decide.
Pedersen, I should have got Pedersen, man. I always signed Pedersen on Football Manager. I should have got him.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Robert is he only played 150 games, but he's joint third in the list, which is about half of the average of everyone else in terms of games. So,
interesting.
Good on his free kicks when he was around. So then, typically, I've done a 3-round quiz, and you've still managed to draw because you both won one. you both won one round, and you've drawn on one. But I did luckily have a tie-break question.
Here we go.
I just need to get my number up. I was like, I didn't think it was going to come to this, and I was like, for God's sake. So this is just literally where you're both going to have to give me a number, so it decides it. So this question is about the record attendance for a Premier League football match. So I'm going to go to Charlie first, and I want you to give me your guess of the record Premier League attendance in the Premier League, like any game in that span of that time frame again, as we've been using for every one. So you need some logic to this, and then some luck with the number.
Okay. In a Premier League game, you said?
In a Premier League game, yeah.
Okay.
So this is in a one-off game, not like an average in a season, in a one-off game.
Yeah. Trying to think. Just to confirm, actually, in my mind, who's got. Actually, yeah, I can't really talk out loud. My thought process is out. So.
I'm never sure if it's a good thing going first or second in this kind of one.
Well, probably second, right? Because you can play the.
But I always think that's a bit risky. Like, yeah, it depends what your benchmark is, isn't it? Really, where you put it for Sam to decide.
I am gonna guess at 74,000.
Okay, you're locking that one in?
Yeah.
Over to you, Sam. What do you think?
Okay, so this is an interesting one. I get to expand my thought process a little bit. So I don't think that's a bad line, because I'm pretty sure that the record attendance is probably going to be either from when, it's probably going to be from when one of the clubs were playing at Wembley while their stadiums were being developed, I'd imagine. Because I think only Old Trafford, maybe the Etihad, but pretty much only Old Trafford would have capacity to be able to hold a crowd of that size.
The Etihad's tiny, isn't it? It's only about 40k.
I thought the Etihad was.
I don't think it's huge. Yeah, Etihad anyway. So.
Empty most weeks.
You only get half of it.
Yeah, 40,000 empty seats. I feel like it's probably going to be at Wembley, but I do think when the clubs were playing at Wembley, that they weren't allowed to sell out the entire stadium, where the Wembley was. I seem to remember when Liverpool played Spurs at Wembley and they beat us 4-1. Somehow we lost 4-1 to Spurs. I don't think all of the top tier was in use. And I think Wembley's about 90,000. So I think that's actually a really good line. I'm tempted to take the unders because I don't know the actual capacity of Old Trafford. I feel like Old Trafford's about 70,000. So Manchester United would have sold out Old Trafford at some point. So the benchmark would be 70,000. Did anyone go over 70? Shall I say 74?
Yeah.
It's a good line, man.
I told you, is that always a bad thing?
If you just said 77 or 76, I'd have snapped taking the unders, but I feel like maybe Old Trafford might be. Maybe I've undercooked Old Trafford. My gut's telling me to take the unders, so I think I'm going to take the unders. So I'll guess 73,999.
It's a very tactical play there. So to just clarify some facts we've discussed, the Etihad has only got 53,000. So that was never in question. So I feel like you were both kind of thinking around the Old Trafford kind of level.
Yeah, that's what my guess was based on. Really, was Old Trafford. But to be fair, I hadn't even considered the Wembley approach Sam did. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so
only because I think the top tier at Wembley is about 50, and I think it's about 90. I think there's not a lot of seats in the top tier, but I'm pretty sure the top tier was closed when Spurs were playing their Premier League games there.
Yeah, so in terms of Old Trafford, there are varying levels of attendance that people seem to claim that it's got, but it varies between 74 and 76,000. So like if you go on one website it says 74, just over 74, one says 75.5. But the record attendance wasn't at Old Trafford. It was at Wembley.
Must be more than that.
So the record attendance was in Spurs against Arsenal at Wembley in February 2018 with 83,222.
Oh wow!
So you got there by default in the end.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was looking at the stats on here, and at some point, I think when United have upgraded the stadium, they actually removed some seats because they had an average attendance in 2007 for the whole season of 75,800. So they've been always renovating stuff and kind of removing some seats and like putting standard in there. So you was around the right level for Old Trafford, but unfortunately it was at Wembley. So that's when I saw that question, I was like, yeah, it's a bit of a thing one, isn't it? Because you'll all think it's Old Trafford, but it wasn't actually. I think Sam had the thinking, but then the top tier put him off a bit. But yeah, so it was Wembley, and unfortunately that means it's a win for Charlie after all that great thinking, and neither of you were that close. But yeah, well done both of you. You did well, as you always tend to do. I'm glad I had a tiebreaker. That's the kind of tiebreaker I need for you guys, because in the thousands where you just got to guess a number.
Fair play.
Yeah, good stuff. I can't remember what the score is overall today. I know it's very close. I'm pretty sure you might be level again, but I think Sam took the lead on the last one. So you'll be level forever on this quiz. Alright, so we'll move on into the second half off the pod, even though I've just seen that Senegal have knocked out Egypt again.
Just had a message from a friend of mine saying, I wonder when Salah's penalty is going to land. So it doesn't sound good.
Out of interest, though, and this is maybe a topic for a separate pod, but I'm just seeing a video of Salah taking his penalty. The number of lasers being shined in his face is absolutely ridiculous, and I'm surprised they even allowed him to take that penalty. He should have been allowed to just stop and escort people out. It is genuinely ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
I'll have to check that out.
That is insane.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't just suspend the game until that was sorted.
That's crazy.
Anyway,
that is insane.
File that under fans being idiots, and we'll do a whole pod on that separately.
Yeah, we'll bring that one up after. Yeah, Sam sent a picture. That is ridiculous. Like right in his eyes. Surely the ref has to do something about that. They're all just prepared for that outcome, weren't they? That's crazy. But you'd still think you keep the ball down, but that's a different talking point. Getting sidetracked here. Right, so we just move on to looking ahead. So we've kind of touched on that kind of plans, what kind of chips we've got. Is there any kind? Well, we're kind of going to discuss optimum places to play these kind of chips that we've got. So I think Charlie, you said you've got a free hit left, haven't you, to play?
Yeah. So I've just got the one free hit left. I think just quickly talking through the rest of the season. We're expecting a few kind of small doubles here and there. So like this week coming, we've got Everton and Burnley with a double and things like that. And to be honest, with those kind of ones, I'm not even really thinking about those teams anyway. So I'm just kind of sticking my head in the sand on those ones. We've been burnt by those before with the likes of Watford, where we've gone heavy on them and they've just not paid off. So I'm kind of ignoring them. So 33 is the kind of obviously big next, the kind of next big week in terms of fixtures, because there's a blank and a double. The teams that blank, which are Leeds, Wolves and Villa, aren't enough on their own to make me want to use the free hit there necessarily. Or kind of lock it in for that week. And then we've got, I think it's 36, right? There's going to be the next kind of big double. We're expecting a very big double. So in terms of my strategy with just the free hit left, it's going to be a toss-up between 33 and 36, I'd imagine. Just based on how my team's looking going into those weeks, what I feel like has the better benefit of paying off. I think because I can see a lot of managers likely going to be playing the bench boost in 36, where there's the bigger double. I think that may be where I target to use my free hit to try and make the most of that week and kind of balance off or counter other managers using the bench boost. So I think very loosely that will be what my plan is. You know, like we said before, I've already used my wild card, so I'm kind of set and with a plan to be able to slowly move my team for the rest of the season anyway. So I don't need to, make any giant shifts in my team or lots of transfers to move players around. And I can play through 33 fairly easily without using the free hit. So I think, I think 36 will be targeted for the free hit, and the rest I'll just be kind of trying to focus on just having the best players in my team as best I can. I think we talked about it before, when around the time when I did play my wild card. The main reason really was because I wanted to just get rid of all these kind of useless players, like I mentioned, the Watford players that I kind of went into just because they had the doubles, and then it didn't turn out very well. And I just found looking at my team pretty annoying, because I wasn't seeing the players that I actually thought would do best each given week. So generally I'll just be trying to move to the best teams, the Man Cities, the Liverpools of the league. Because like we said, it is so competitive at the moment still, and should be for the rest of the season, or certainly until the last couple of weeks. So, that's kind of my rough plan going forward, I think.
Yeah, picked up on most of the main bits to be looking out for. Like you said, I think 33 and 36 are going to be those big ones. There's a possibility you get quite a few doubles in 37 as well, to be keeping an eye out for there. And then kind of what you said, there's a lot of teams where you've got like a Leicester that have got a lot of games to rearrange, so I think you're going to get quite a few doubles for them. You've even got a few for like Chelsea. I think, for example, if like Chelsea got knocked out of Europe in the next round, they could have like a double in like a 34, like just a random game week that you really wouldn't expect one to drop into. So I think it's just trying to be as flexible as you can moving forward. I think especially with a free hit, like you've mentioned, you probably use it in 36 because of you not having that, like a lot of Wolves kind of players in that 33. Like how I'm sitting at the minute, it's very much I think I need to play that free hit in 33 because at the minute I've got 7 players from those 3 teams that blank, and I'm like, I don't really want to be like ripping up my team to get rid of those players in the space of like 3 weeks where you have to take hits, or like tailoring your transfers to deal with those issues when I could decide to attack the next few weeks knowing I'm going to free hit anyway. So at this current time, with the free hit, bench boost, and wildcard still to go, my kind of initial thoughts, and I'm kind of pretty set on this currently. I think it's going to be free hit 33. The wildcard is the one that I could do 34 or 35. I'd probably do 34 just so you get that extra week's benefit. And then that would be setting you up for bench boost in 36, which should be the biggest double. And I think the big thing about 36 is most of the big teams will double as well. So like your Liverpools, I think that's why in your circumstance, Charlie, that it's better in 36 than 33, because like 33, it's a lot of teams you won't really fancy, like a United or a Newcastle or something. So if you only got one free hit and your team's fine for 33, I'd be recommending go 36, I think, because it's probably a higher upside and you can concentrate on those, like, I think a big one would be like a City or a Chelsea, like getting the right assets in rather than having to spread your funds for like a bench boost or just having like half adequate assets for those weeks. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, especially with all the chips I've got to play. I think Charlie had his fun in that few weeks where he played all his chips in consecutive weeks, but now it's over to me. So I think, Sam, you said you're left with a bench boost, aren't you? Based on that, I think you mentioned, well, you need to full send it at some point to beat your cousin. Whatever. What are you kind of eyeing up at the minute? I know you mentioned about 33. Would you be hanging on for it for a bit later, see what comes in like 36?
I think so, yeah. Bench boost won't get played till 36, I don't think. Just to see what happens. I imagine over the next couple of weeks, the transfers will be moving in towards the big boys again, particularly after Liverpool play City. I think that's the plan there. Just basically trying to get as many dead cert to play players in as possible, making sure that we don't have any howlers from people not playing, which I'm not actually in too bad a position for going into this game week. Brought Van Dijk in. I think he's more likely to play than not every single time he's fit. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I haven't got too much strategy behind it, other than I know that in game week 36 that will be the the bench boost.
Yeah, I don't think it's really too bad to plan for as well, because a lot of the assets you'll be going for in 36 will ones you'll want anyway, like your Liverpools, your Cities. Yeah, I think even Arsenal, pretty sure will have one as well. So you can, obviously, we got to the end of the season where you've only got a certain amount of game weeks left, and certain teams have got fixtures to arrange or rearrange, should I say? So you can kind of predict where they're going to fall. I think there's certain teams like a Leicester or a Chelsea, and even some other teams when they're still in Europe that you're a bit uncertain about, but you know they're going to be within these like last 7 or 8 weeks, so you can kind of plan towards that. You need that big bench boost to win the league, so you need to get spying and seeing what kind of chips they've got left.
I think he's a bit reckless, Matt. Though I think he's definitely got. I think he's sent everything into trying to catch up. It's quite incredible, really, because I had about 200-point advantage at the turn of the year. So it's an impressive turnaround from him. So credit where it's due to a certain extent, but I've got to bring this home. Cannot lose.
Can't bottle it from that kind of advantage, can you really?
No, definitely not.
You'll have to give us weekly updates on this, how the status is going. This is the drama that we've got now.
Yeah.
Seems like we can't chase Charlie down anymore.
No.
We've admitted defeat in that one.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult. That is going to be very difficult.
I've seen a few people fancying, and I think it was last season where we had all the COVID postponements kind of thing. A lot of people free hitted in game week 38 just for the fun of ending the season like that. And if you look at game week 38, there's quite a lot of pretty nice fixtures. I think like most of the big teams have got pretty strong games. Like I think Chelsea, I'm just getting up here. So yeah, Chelsea have got Watford, Spurs have got Norwich. So and Arsenal, Everton. There's some decent upside you could get from that 38, but I think you can get better upside from other game weeks. I think the only reason I would do that is if you've literally got like every chip left and you can't use it in like a 36 because you're bench boosting, for example. But I know it's a bit of a differential way to go for if you want to leave it to 38. I think a big thing I always find in 38, there's always like random players that do well. Like I know historically from my experience in my mini leagues, Mane loves the final day of the season. I remember in my mini league last season, I lost on the last day of the season because the guy had Salah and Mane and I only had Salah. So I was devastated. I was just in tears. No, but there's always some like random players who are in favour at that like end of the season, and especially.
Tell you who else loves the end of the season? Mahrez. He loves it. So I'm hoping Coutinho can outshine him on the last day of the season this time. But
because I think especially like if you've got like teams that get to like the semi-finals of the Champions League and then they lose in the semi-final and then the like last game of the season, they haven't really got like a final to be waiting for. So they'll put the best team out for that.
Yeah. So
it gives you that flexibility to bring in like free City assets that you wouldn't probably risk to keep normally. Like in our situation, Sam, like we'll probably avoid some City assets because we're scared they're not going to play. Like when we're bench boosting, we'll probably avoid some of them.
Depends how the title race is going, right? That's a big thing in it as well.
But obviously around the rotation as well, like if I said to you, would you have Mahrez in ready for your bench boost? I think you'd have some hesitation about if he's going to play because he'd probably play in the Champions League as well.
Yeah, true.
But if it's a free hit and 38 and he's just going to pay his full strength team, it's a bit different thinking. So that's kind of like we've got a thinking like me and you go for the bench boost, and then Charlie will have a different level of thinking because. Well, I was thinking, especially for Charlie, he's not going to keep any value on his bench. He can easily just like bin some players off on his bench and forget about them.
Yeah.
But we've got to spread the funds, so it's interesting because there's benefits in both strategies. Obviously, we've got chips to use, but then Charlie gets that benefit of being able to focus his team at the same time. So if we have a quick look at what we're coming into the next game week with, then into game week 31. Back to you, Charlie. Have you got 1 free transfer, 2 free transfers? Have you got any plans that you're lining up for the game week?
So I've got 2 free transfers, which was always the play for me through last week, setting up my team so I wouldn't have to make a transfer and could hold one to run it through the international break. It comes down to me, for my team, comes down to what happens in the sort of late presses late this week, because there's the doubt about Ramsdale, there's doubt about Trent, so I'll need to find out what happens with them. Even, to be honest, if they were both confirmed out, I would probably keep them both. Certainly Ramsdale, because I don't think that's meant to be very long term. I'm not sure about Trent. If he was out for a little bit longer, then I'd consider moving Trent out just because of the amount of money that he does cost. But really, my moves are going to be targeting getting rid of Jimenez, both because of, like we mentioned, the Wolves blank, but obviously also as well because he got that second yellow, meaning he's been suspended. And like you touched on there, Will, my intention with that is actually just to downgrade him to a bench striker and leave him last on my bench. Just give me that extra bit of funds, probably to use the second transfer to upgrade someone, maybe Digne or Kilman, either to a Chelsea or Man City's defender. Just depends on what the situation is. I think from the latest that I saw was that Reece James is back in training. So that will be on my mind, whether to go that way, because I'm pretty sure every time I've brought Reece James in, he's absolutely smashed it. And we know he has that potential to do things like that. So yeah, that's kind of my rough plan at the moment. Captain armband on Salah at the moment, with a view to absolutely smashing Watford and making up for this Egypt's loss this week. I know there's a lot of talk about him playing reduced minutes with the Champions League after and so on, and the Man City game as well. But despite it being Watford, I think, like we've just said, the title race is going to run close, and I don't think Klopp's going to be wanting to make any hold back anyone, just to make sure I would more likely see that he plays 60 and then comes off rather than comes off the bench if needed. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. And yeah, pretty happy with how the setup's going.
I hope Salah can keep his penalty down if you've got him captain now. And well, I was going to make a comment about what you were saying then, and it's just completely gone out of my head. It'll come back to me in a minute. No, it won't. What are your plans, Sam, in terms of transfers? So I think you said you just literally, I don't think you made a transfer, did you? So are you in the same position with your 2 transfers as well?
No, I've actually made my transfers already.
Oh.
I made them, I can't remember, a couple of days ago, I think, when I reacquainted myself with FPL after a little bit of a break. I made a very similar move to Charlie, what he was talking about, which actually fills me with a bit of confidence I might have done the right thing. I went for the budget bench striker to camp out in that third bench to free up some funds. And the players I took out were Bowen and Jimenez, and I bought in Son and this bench fodder lad, young Coombs. So Son's in. Son is in. I had to bring in Son because I had to offset the risk of Spurs running riot and Matt having 3 Spurs players. I couldn't quite. Spurs' fixtures are amazing, and yeah, I couldn't run the risk of Son and Kane just utterly destroying me. So yeah, I don't know what's exactly going to happen there, but I felt like there might have been I think Son's going to play, right? So it wasn't exactly too much of a risk unless he gets injured, of course, but seems unlikely. I don't think Trent is going to be back for Watford. I think there's a lot of talk that Liverpool tend to do this thing where if they say that they're targeting, but it's a race against time for a fixture, that player's usually available for that fixture. So they've said that a lot of noise is coming out of the club this week that he's definitely not fit for Watford, but is more than likely to be okay for the City game. So I kept Trent in. I just think it's a bit of a tricky one. If you take Trent out and start distributing the funds, it's really hard to get him back. So if he does have a decent run in, he's Liverpool's only right back. So it's not like if Robertson got injured, you could probably say Tsimikas would play a little bit. Our right back cover is Joe Gomez, makeshift centre back, right back, or James Milner. So it's basically Trent or no one. So yeah, I went for Son, which I'm fine with, and I've got Weghorst up top for the double game week. He's just about surviving in the team at the minute.
That's literally the same as mine. Like Weghorst is just there because he's not the most urgent thing to deal with.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
He's got a lot of fixtures to get through. That reminded me as well. Yeah, I was going to touch on Trent because I saw the same news as you. Basically, the track they're aiming for the City games to get back. So yeah. Obviously we're missing that money game that hopefully we would have got some points in against Watford, which actually plays pretty well into my strategy because with the wildcard still in hand, I'm more likely to get rid of Trent now because I was keeping him for that Watford game, but now I feel like I can get rid of him for Watford and then City, and then I'll be free hitting and then wildcarding, so I can use those funds for the 2 weeks. I'm thinking very much similar to Charlie that it might be a Reece James that will be coming in. From what I've seen with Reece James, I think technically he could have gone away with England, but he'd not been back in training at all. So he's been training the majority of the international break. So I'm quite confident that he will play a lot of minutes. The only bit I'm nervous about is them having the Champions League and they've got a decent tie they've got to deal with. That's the main issue I have with that, but really he's by far their best right wing back, so I'd expect him to be playing. And as Charlie touched on, when he does play, he seems to pop up. Well, I say that. Charlie says every time he gets him, he does well. And then when I got Mill in the season, I just had like 1 point, 0 point, and then 1 point, 1 point. I think he averaged about 1 point over about 4 or 5 game weeks for me. So typically I got him at the wrong time. But it might be the time to jump on to him at this point. But yeah, I've only got the 1 transfer. So originally I was going to do Luca Dean to Reece James, but I think I'll do Trent to James now because Digne's been declared fit as well, so I can use him in the next 2 weeks if I want to. But I've kind of given up on the fact that I need to get rid of the Wolves and Villa players and accepted that I'm going to free hit, so I'm not as rushed to get rid of those players out of the team. So I think I'm going to be expecting to captain Salah, really. Is that where your armband is as well, Sam?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It depends on where Matt's armband is, really. I think Salah makes sense, but so Salah's game after he came back from AFCON final, I don't think he scored in. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Plus, I have already got 2 Liverpool assets in Salah and Van Dijk, and I don't know. I fancy Son at home against Newcastle. I don't. Yeah, I think it's probably going to be Salah, but I do fancy Son at home against Newcastle.
Yeah, the only other one in consideration for me is like Kane. I wouldn't be going anywhere else outside of Salah or Kane, I don't think. It's definitely not going on Vegas, even though he's got 2 games. So considering one of them's against City.
Right? Yeah.
I mean,
he could do us a massive favour to get a Vegas shirt if he scores against City.
It's literally 2 points plus whatever he gets in the other game. Well, knowing our luck, he'll probably get booked anyway just to make sure it's 1 point. But yeah, not expecting much there. And it's kind of just targeting a few transfers the next few weeks for me, just trying to maximise some points. Like there's good upside in a James, and then I'll take a look at 32 if I can get some upside in just like 1 or 2 transfers, because I know they're only going to be there for 1 week. I'm loosely thinking of a ditching Salah in game week 32 because they're playing City and taking a punt on a other midfielder. But unfortunately, there's not many, because they're actually playing City. I would have normally gone for a City midfielder, but then it leaves you with a thin pool of like a Bruno. And I'm like, yeah, I don't trust United that much yet. We shall see on that one. But I just wanted to touch on, before we finish, I think it's kind of a difficult question with different commitments. But if you was recommending teams going forward, I'll put this to Charlie first. So for the rest of the season, if you were kind of a general kind of consensus, Charlie, if you were saying, or getting players from this team, could you expect them to do well in the rest of the season, or the like must-have players? Is there certain teams like, you might say Arsenal in this, but if someone's looking to target their transfers to certain teams, is there certain teams you'd be wanting to target over this final phase?
Yeah, I think it's and there are times where FPL isn't always this this obvious, but I think at this point it is just the obvious best teams. So take your pick really out of the current top 5. I think Arsenal and Spurs fixtures are great. There's no reason not to get at least 2 from both, if not 3. Who else? Man City and Liverpool again. I think tripling up on Liverpool, absolutely. City, it's just more difficult because of the potential rotation. And then there's the Chelsea doubt, like we said, because it's maybe a little bit more clear where they'll finish. We're expecting them to finish 3rd. There's, I guess, a slight risk if Arsenal were to do really well and beat Chelsea in the game against Chelsea, that they may drop to 4th. But again, that's not exactly the end of the world. So there may be some rotation with Chelsea, but like you said, Reece James should be fairly nailed, being a real great threat and just providing something completely different when he's in the team. Or even if you want to go safer, maybe Rudiger, and you'll be fine to, I think, just hold him till the end of the season. So yeah, I think those are the main teams to be targeting. I think, the fact that, for example, Burnley have 5 games over the next 3 game weeks, and I'm not even considering touching them. I think that just says everything. I think at this point, and this is something I've learnt this season really, is regardless of the number of fixtures, you've got to look at the quality of the actual players themselves and if they're likely to do anything, because just getting 4 points for playing twice doesn't really outdo a player that you actually expect to get some kind of attack in return, for example. So I'm not considering the likes of any of the Burnley players, not considering any of the Leicester players who have a fair number of fixtures as well. But they're just so inconsistent. There's no one I'd want to even go to. So I think, because of my plan as well, and the strategy I've ended on, where I am able to just kind of really try and pump all my money into the first 11 and go for a very cheap bench. I really am just trying to go all out on those top 5 teams, really. I would suggest if that's where you're going, you just want to try to maximise those last however many weeks, 8 weeks. I think that's where you go.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense at this point of the season. I think the main part being because most of them have still got something to play for. Like obviously Liverpool and your Cities are competing, your Spurs and your Arsenal are competing for top 4. So obviously if they're on the beach, as to say, oh, they've not got nothing to play for, it might be a bit different. But like you said, it's a lot simpler than it generally is just to go for the best options at this point. And I think I pretty much agree with you on your Burnley points. I won't be surprised if Vegel's got more in game week 32 away at Norwich than he does in this double game week. That's kind of how it's just going to work. It's not always the amount of fixtures. I think when you look at that City fixture, you're like, it's not a quality fixture anyway, so not going to get really that upside. I think unless you had like a goalkeeper issue, like needed to get a goalkeeper in, I'd be tempted a bit by Nick Pope, but apart from that, I don't think there's much else I'd be going for. Like if you're on a wild card or free hit, there's no point. You may as well go for one of those keepers or something like that, even like a Kasper Schmeichel, like you said with Leicester. But it's kind of one of those luxury transfers, isn't it? I think you're better, like you said, if you haven't got any chips to play, focusing on those high upside players rather than messing about at this stage of the season, changing out like to get in like a Leicester defender or like one of these Leicester midfielders you're not sure is going to play every single game, especially when they've got Europe and they quite like to go quite far in that as well. Puts that added bit of risk in there. Is there any certain teams you're looking at, Sam, that you're going to pull out of the hat on your mini league rival? They've not got many players in that team and you're just going to run away with it because you brought them in?
Well, I have got Pope in goal.
There you go.
But the bonus point merchant. And I am basically holding Veghorst for this week, and then we'll evaluate afterwards. But Matt's got double Wolves. So he's got Sarr and Saiss at the back. So Wolves blank in 33, and they haven't got the best run in. So I'm not too concerned about that one. He's also got Amati at the back, which is an interesting decision.
Sounds like Charlie, that one.
You know, I'm not too much of a fan of that one. He's got Matty Cash and Reguilon. I have neither of. He has Coutinho, Saka, and Son that I have covered, and then he has Danny Ings, Jimenez, and Kane. So off of that, I shouldn't really be too concerned about that setup. I think as long as he doesn't change too much, he has got some money to be able to move around with Kane, but he doesn't have any transfers in the bank. So I'm actually relatively confident coming off of the sort of take the hit in the last week strategy to sort of not go crazy this week. I had 91 points the week before, which clawed me right back up above him, and then he did slap me a bit last week. So I think I fancy my back 4 of Rudiger, Van Dijk, Cody, and Alexander-Arnold, which will probably be Livramento this week. Long term over his back 4. Certainly fancy my midfield. I've got the Son, Coutinho, and Saka covered, and then instead of Danny Ings and Jimenez, I've got Bernardo Silva and Salah, and then so I'd probably expect both of them to outscore Jimenez and Ings.
So has he not got Salah in his team then?
No, he has not got Salah. So I need
a big one. Won that.
Need a big one from Mo coming in.
I think it's this week, isn't it? If he goes mad this week, Salah, then should give you that advantage.
So I've got Dennis on the bench as well. So Dennis will come in next week after Liverpool. He's got Leeds at home, and then Brentford at home. Then they play City. They've got Burnley at home, Palace away. And I know that. So Dennis will come in for those games.
Yeah, I saw Watford have got some little pictures dotted in about, haven't they? That are quite decent. I think
Dennis has proven that he can find the net. It's just whether they can get the ball to Dennis. the thing, really, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
I'm confident that at the end of the season, I can get back to the top of the table. Just need to hopefully not get too unlucky with injuries, and I hope Harry Kane does his hammy.
Whatever you do, just don't captain Dennis in a double game week. We've learned from that one before.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, no, I remember that. No, I think directly offsetting against him, the play might be to captain Son, because he'll captain Kane, and he hasn't got Salah, so I'm automatically going to get a gain with Salah.
Yeah.
I feel like to maximum offset to shackle him as much as I can. I think the play is to captain Son, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a defensive move to cover, isn't it? You could get maximum benefit if you captain Salah and he's got a hat-trick or whatever.
I mean, he's not captaining Son, so I guess they don't really lose too much against it, right? He's going to captain Kane.
Yeah. What would you do?
Unfortunately, I think Kane's going to run riot against Newcastle. So,
well, Newcastle have tightened up a bit. I think I'd still stick. I think I'll stick with Salah still and hope that Spurs only get a goal or two, and that
my heart says leave it with Salah. There's not many times this season where Salah hasn't had the armband. He even had the armband last week when he wasn't playing, and Saka had the vice. So
I saw that. That was funny.
Yeah. So yeah, I think he'll probably stay with Salah if we're being realistic.
That's the rule of the FPL season. Always captain Salah, even when he hasn't got a game.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
Good. You gave me flashbacks when you talked about his team as well with Matty Cash on there. Highlight of my season when Matty Cash got that 28-pointer. Just absolutely carrying me. That must have got him back up the rankings against you as well.
Yeah, for sure. There was a couple of weeks where he turned in like insane scores. I think he had 2 centuries back to back. It was pretty impressive. I mean, he's had a pretty decent. Yeah, I mean,
it sounds like Charlie most weeks.
He went on a run. He went on a 6-week stretch of 76, 72, 133, 66, 68, 78, and just like raining points. While I was sort of trickling over in the 30s on the beach. Got the phone call from my brother saying what's going on. I had to sort it out.
He's been getting tips from Charlie. Well, he's been trying to catch up with you.
He might have been listening to the pod. That might be it. I did tell him all that we were recording the pod, so he might have been listening.
He's going to be listening to all your tactics now.
Well, yeah,
he's going to cover them all now.
He's got no transfers, no money in the bank, and no hope. So good luck to him.
Might catch that trick incoming.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that covers everything we wanted to cover tonight, guys. Unless you think I've missed anything or you wanted to cover anything.
No, it's all good.
I think we're all right.
Yeah, sounds good. And we're trying to limit down the time to make it an easier listen for you all. So I think we are good for now, and good luck everyone in game week 31. Don't go on too many Burnley players is our review of that game week. And we should now to the end of the season be here for most Tuesdays every week. It's a nice kind of no international breaks until the end of the season, so we should be good all the way through. But I appreciate everyone for listening. Thanks to Charlie and Sam as ever, and we will see you on the next one. Have a great evening, everyone.